Welcome to Infinite Universe with interesting episode. When I was filming that show where I cried alone in my dressing room, and no one asked if I was okay, I felt like I was being used. Like I didn't have a voice. I was so young, and all I wanted was to make people proud. But no one cared about what I was going through behind the scenes. That part of the live hit fans the hardest. They weren't just hearing from an actress, they were seeing a young woman who had carried years of emotional pain and finally decided to let it out. She continued speaking about the pressure to keep quiet, to always smile for the cameras, and to avoid speaking up because powerful people didn't want their image affected. According to China, the moment she started setting boundaries for her mental health and faith, things became difficult. She said she was labeled difficult and ungrateful for wanting to have a say in the content she was involved in. The most heartbreaking part came when she said, "There were days I begged God to give me strength to go on set. I knew I was compromising myself. But I was afraid. Afraid of being blacklisted. Afraid of disappointing my family. Afraid of people saying I was just another bitter actor." It was clear she had carried this weight for years, trying to protect the image of a Hollywood success story while suffering in silence. She explained that her decision to walk away wasn't out of pride or rebellion, but survival. She didn't want to lose herself trying to please people who never truly saw her as a person. While China never directly called out Tyler Perry, the context of her words, the timeline, and past interactions all pointed toward her experience under his leadership. The industry quickly took notice. Some fans defended Perry, arguing that he had launched many black actors' careers. But others took China's side, saying it was time to re-examine the power dynamics that exist in Hollywood, even in spaces led by people of color. Tyler Perry's team did not immediately respond. For weeks, there was silence from his camp. But behind closed doors, insiders claim there was concern about the potential fallout. Perry, known for maintaining a squeaky clean image, especially as a self-made black billionaire, was not used to this kind of public challenge, especially not from someone he helped put on the map. Eventually, a vague statement was released by a spokesperson stating that Mr. Perry has always strived to create an environment of professionalism and support for all cast and crew members. It didn't address China's claims directly, nor did it include any form of apology or promise of review. Fans felt it was dismissive, lacking empathy or acknowledgement. Meanwhile, China stayed grounded. She didn't attack. She didn't backtrack. She kept posting faith-based content, encouraging others to stand firm in their values. She began doing more interviews, not always about the controversy, but about healing, personal growth, and trusting God through difficult times. Slowly, more actors began to speak out, not just from House of Payne but from other productions as well. Some spoke anonymously, saying they too felt overworked and unheard in environments that were supposed to be supportive. One actress said, "I worked with Tyler Perry years ago, and I remember thinking, this man is a genius, but he runs everything. No one questions him. You either fall in line or you're out." Another said, "We were afraid to speak up. We thought if we didn't do what he said, we'd never work again." The deeper issue wasn't just Tyler Perry. It was the culture of silence that exists in the entertainment world. A culture where speaking out can end your career. Where young black actors, especially women, are expected to be grateful for any opportunity even if it means being mistreated or spiritually compromised. China's story sparked a wave of online conversations. Hashtags trended. Video essays dissected her live. Commentators, journalists, and mental health advocates began raising the question, why are so many actors afraid to speak up? And why do powerful people get away with creating toxic environments? Even though she never filed a formal complaint or threatened legal action, China's revelation held more power than a lawsuit ever could. She shared her story with sincerity and vulnerability. She didn't want revenge. She wanted truth. She wanted other young artists to know that it's okay to walk away when your spirit is being crushed. It's okay to prioritize peace over fame. Her words inspired not just actors but everyday people, those stuck in jobs or relationships where they felt voiceless. In the months that followed, more attention was placed on how production sets operate. Some directors started holding feedback sessions with younger cast members. Mentorship programs were launched. Mental health counselors were hired on some TV and film sets. It wasn't a massive industry shift, but it was a beginning. And all of it traced back to one live video, one woman choosing to speak her truth after years of silence. As for China, she found peace in her new path. She began producing her own content, faith-based short films and motivational videos that resonated deeply with audiences. She spoke at youth events, urging teenagers to love themselves enough to walk away from things that hurt them. Her fan base changed. It became less about being a Disney star and more about being a symbol of courage and clarity. She still acts, but on her own terms. She writes scripts that align with her beliefs. She chooses collaborations carefully. And most importantly, she's happy. Not fake Hollywood smile happy, but real, soul-deep happy. Tyler Perry, meanwhile, continued with his projects. He released new films and announced new ventures. But the glow wasn't quite the same. Some fans watched with skepticism. Some questioned the working conditions behind the glossy productions. Industry insiders whispered that more former employees might come forward in time. So far, none have spoken as directly or bravely as China, but her testimony opened a door that will never fully close again. In the grand scheme of Hollywood, stories like China's are often buried or dismissed. But her courage gave a voice to the voiceless. It reminded the world that behind every smiling star is a real human being, sometimes struggling, sometimes breaking, sometimes healing. What she exposed wasn't just one man's behavior, it was an entire system's flaw. And even if the world never sees Tyler Perry the same way again, what matters more is that China sees herself clearly now. She is no longer that scared little girl afraid to speak. She is a woman who chose truth over comfort, faith over fear, and peace over popularity. And that, more than any role she's ever played, is her legacy. This story continues to evolve. More people may come forward. More questions may be asked. But one thing is certain, China Anne McClain's voice can no longer be ignored. And thanks to her bravery, a spotlight now shines on the shadows of an industry that often hides behind its own success. Her story isn't over, it's just beginning. And the world is finally ready to listen. After China Anne McClain's emotional live video began spreading across the internet, the reaction was overwhelming. Fans, actors, activists, and everyday people flooded social media with messages of support, praise, and concern. People who had never followed her closely before suddenly became invested in her story. It wasn't just because she had been a child star or a recognizable face from Disney, it was because she was brave enough to say what so many people were afraid to say. She wasn't bitter, angry, or disrespectful. She was honest. And that honesty hit people in a way that scripted apologies and public statements never could. Many fans began re-watching old episodes of House of Payne, A&T Farm, and Descendants, noticing things they had missed before. Her tired eyes in some scenes, her more reserved presence in later episodes, and her emotional interviews from the past suddenly looked different. People began piecing the puzzle together. What once looked like a simple acting career now seemed like a journey filled with quiet suffering and spiritual conflict. And through it all, China had remained poised, graceful, and humble. Hollywood journalists and entertainment outlets picked up the story, and soon it became part of a much larger conversation about the treatment of young actors, especially black women, in the entertainment industry. Critics asked how it was possible for such problems to go unnoticed or unaddressed. Why had no one listened earlier when China hinted at her discomfort? Why had no one stepped in to support her when she was clearly struggling? More people from within the industry began speaking anonymously to the media. One former crew member from a Tyler Perry production said, "We all knew who had the power. You either followed orders or you were done. It didn't matter how talented you were or how young you were." Another added, "I always wondered how China kept smiling through it all. She was clearly uncomfortable sometimes, but she never complained. She just kept going." These stories weren't just about one person, they were about a pattern, a culture of control and silence that had been accepted for far too long. The entertainment industry has often been accused of treating young talent like products, not people. And in China's case, this became painfully clear. She had been a child when she started working under Tyler Perry. She had barely learned who she was, and suddenly she was part of a high-pressure world with adult expectations, strict rules, and limited freedom. While many praised Perry for giving opportunities to black actors, very few questioned how those opportunities came with hidden costs. China's story forced people to look deeper. It wasn't enough to give someone a role, they needed respect, protection, and space to grow. China's faith played a huge part in her journey. Over the years, her love for God became stronger and more public. She often posted Bible verses, spiritual reflections, and messages of encouragement for her followers. Her relationship with faith became her foundation, helping her survive some of the darkest periods of her career. But it also became a point of tension in Hollywood, where religious boundaries are often tested. China said there were times when she was asked to do or say things that went against her beliefs. When she tried to say no, she was seen as difficult. She explained, "I'm not trying to force my beliefs on anyone. I just want to be true to myself. I can't pretend anymore just to make people happy." This honesty inspired thousands of fans to reach out with their own stories. Young people from different parts of the world wrote to her saying they also felt pressured to hide their true selves in school, at work, or even in their own families. China had become more than a former child star, she had become a role model for self-respect and spiritual strength. She responded with kindness and compassion, often reposting messages from fans and thanking them for their courage. Meanwhile, the conversation around Tyler Perry became more complicated. For years, he had been seen as a trailblazer, someone who created a media empire from scratch, told black stories, and brought representation to mainstream screens. But now people were asking if his success came at the cost of other people's well-being. No one could deny what he had achieved, but the way he managed his productions, especially the stories from young actors like China, raised serious concerns. Some people in the industry defended Perry. They said he was under a lot of pressure, working on tight deadlines, and always trying to help his community. They pointed out how many actors had started their careers with him. But others argued that success should never come at the cost of someone else's peace. A good leader should inspire, not intimidate. And if someone like China, who gave her all to every role, felt used and unheard, then something was clearly wrong. China's family was also deeply affected by everything she revealed. Her parents, who had supported her since day one, remained quiet in the public eye, but those close to them said they were proud of her for speaking up. Her sisters, who are also in the entertainment industry, showed silent support through their posts and shared prayers. The McClain family had always been close, and now more than ever, they leaned on each other. They knew the risks China was taking by telling the truth, but they also knew it was the right thing to do. As the months passed, China continued to grow and evolve. She released more independent content, wrote her own stories, and began working on a documentary about her experiences. She didn't want it to be about revenge. She wanted it to be about healing. About how young actors could protect themselves. About how faith could be a source of strength, not something to be hidden. She said, "My goal is not to tear anyone down. My goal is to help people see the truth, so the next generation doesn't have to go through what I did." Her courage even caught the attention of advocacy groups and mental health professionals. They praised her for shining a light on an issue that many ignored. Some began pushing for industry-wide changes, better support for child actors, access to on-set therapists, clearer ways for young artists to speak up without fear of being punished. China's voice became a catalyst for change, not just in entertainment, but in how we treat young people in all areas of life. Despite the pain she had endured, China never turned bitter. She focused on forgiveness and moving forward. In a YouTube video, she said, "I don't hate anyone. I just wish things had been different. I wish someone had asked me how I was doing. I wish someone had listened. But now, I'm taking back my voice, and I'm using it for good." That message resonated deeply. It wasn't about blaming the past, it was about building a better future. China's journey became a symbol of what it means to stand strong in a world that often rewards silence. She could have stayed quiet, continued working, and enjoyed the fame. But she chose the harder path. She chose truth, even when it meant risking everything. And in doing so, she reminded the world that young women, especially black women, deserve to be heard. They deserve to be safe. They deserve to be more than just faces on a screen, they deserve to be treated with dignity. In time, people began seeing China in a new light. Not just as an actress. Not just as a former Disney star. But as a woman who walked through fire and came out shining brighter. She became a voice for those who had none. And even though her story began in pain, it is ending in purpose. Today, she continues creating, inspiring, and speaking with the kind of clarity that only comes from walking through storms and finding peace on the other side. And for the people still trapped in toxic environments, whether in Hollywood, school, work, or home, China's story is a reminder: you are not alone. You are not weak for wanting peace. You are not wrong for walking away. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be respected. And your voice matters. She had been quiet for so many years. She had smiled when she was told to. She had done what was asked of her because she thought that was the price of success. But deep inside, something never felt right. There were moments on set when she wanted to walk away. Times when her heart screamed that something was wrong. But when she voiced her concerns, she was told to do it anyway. Her instincts were ignored. The people making these decisions weren't strangers. They were people she once admired, people she trusted. That made it even harder. She wasn't being defied by enemies, she was being pushed by those she had looked up to. During one specific episode of House of Payne, Anne McClain said she faced a situation that deeply conflicted with her spiritual and moral beliefs. She didn't want to do the scene. She tried to explain how it went against her values. But instead of being heard, she was pressured. She was told the production would be disrupted if she didn't go along. She was made to feel like she should just be grateful for having a role in the first place. She remembered being told that she was lucky to have a platform at all. But to her, it didn't feel like a platform, it felt like a trap. She said they didn't want her voice. They wanted her obedience. And when she tried to push back, she wasn't seen as brave or honest. Instead, she was called difficult, ungrateful, emotional. The labels came quickly, and they stuck. In a nearly 30-minute Instagram live, China spoke not with anger but with deep emotion and strength. She never insulted anyone. She wasn't trying to get revenge. But her words were powerful. She wasn't just speaking as a former child star. She was speaking as a young black woman who had grown up inside an entertainment industry that loved to celebrate powerful creators like Tyler Perry but often ignored the pain that happened behind the scenes. Her message landed hard. Young actors, especially other women of color, listened closely. Some even began posting their own cryptic messages afterward, small hints that maybe they had been through something similar. Maybe China wasn't alone. In just one day, her video went viral. Clips from her Instagram Live were reposted all over the internet. People uploaded them to YouTube. Gossip blogs wrote long articles. TikTok users made response videos. Podcasts discussed every word she said. Hashtags started trending fast, #China Anne McClain, #House of Payne Truth, #Tyler Perry exposed. Fan forums lit up. People were debating, arguing, questioning. Some praised her for being so brave. Others rushed to defend Tyler Perry, saying she was exaggerating or that maybe she misunderstood what had happened. The lines were quickly drawn, and the story wasn't going away. Then something unexpected happened. Tyler Perry's team quietly reached out. According to some sources close to the situation, his studio tried to contact China's representatives. There were whispers that a cease and desist letter was drafted. It hasn't been confirmed whether it was actually sent, but people close to the matter say it was seriously considered. If the goal was to scare her into silence, it didn't work. She responded on her Instagram story, "You don't scare me. I'm covered. And I'm not here to destroy, I'm here to tell the truth. That's what God called me to do." She wasn't being aggressive. She was being honest. And she was standing her ground. It was clear now, Anne McClain wasn't going to play by Hollywood's rules anymore. Then came the part that truly shocked everyone. 2 other women, both of whom had worked with Tyler Perry in the past, were rumored to be preparing to speak out too. One of them, a major actress from another hit Perry series, posted something on her Instagram that made people sit up. She didn't name names. She didn't use hashtags. She simply posted a black screen with 4 words, "She told no lies." That's all it said, but fans immediately knew what it meant. She had worked with Perry for years, and her post seemed to be a quiet but strong confirmation of what China had said. The silence surrounding Perry's world was starting to crack. More voices joined in. A former assistant director who worked on If Loving You Is Wrong tweeted, "There's so much the public doesn't know. Working under that system isn't as empowering as it looks from the outside." The tweets began spreading. Then a background actor who had appeared in several Tyler Perry productions made a TikTok that went viral. She explained what it felt like working in that environment. "People think it's a dream to work for Tyler Perry," she said, "but it's a machine. It's fast-paced. You don't ask questions. You don't make waves. If you do, they get rid of you. You ask for a break, they replace you." Her words hit hard. They matched exactly what China had been trying to say. And they were coming from people who had actually lived through it. It wasn't gossip anymore. These were real testimonies. Real people who had been on those sets. And just when things couldn't get more intense, a memo started circulating online. It was supposedly leaked from inside Tyler Perry Studios. No one has confirmed if it's real, but the document seemed to describe how the studio should respond to social media allegations. It told staff to avoid public engagement and ignore inflammatory content. Some people saw this as proof that the studio was trying to protect its image. Others believed it was a sign that they were losing control over the narrative. What had once been tightly managed was now slipping through their fingers. Questions started pouring in. Why did Tyler Perry write almost all his shows himself? Why was there so little room for other writers or collaborators? Why did so many actors describe exhaustion and creative tension on his sets? Why was questioning the process treated like betrayal? These weren't small complaints. They pointed to something deeper, a pattern, a system that didn't allow for growth or freedom, only control. Tyler Perry's public image as a generous, self-made visionary started to weaken. He was known as a trailblazer, especially in black entertainment, giving new actors a chance and telling important stories. But behind the scenes, a different story was unfolding. Even bigger shockwaves were felt when a source from a major network that had worked with Tyler Perry in the past said that executives were reconsidering future partnerships. They hadn't released a public statement yet, but the fact that it was even being discussed meant something serious was going on. The entertainment world doesn't turn its back on a billion-dollar creator easily. But now, networks were feeling the pressure. And fans were watching closely. The fanbase split in two. Some people continued to defend Tyler Perry, insisting that the actors were bitter or had misunderstood his intentions. Others called for accountability. They wanted transparency. They wanted to know the truth. More than anything, they wanted artists, especially black creatives, to be free to express themselves without fear of being silenced. And China Anne McClain? She wasn't done. Not even close. Rumors started swirling that she was writing a full-length memoir. It wasn't just a story about acting. It was about faith, betrayal, surviving Hollywood, and finally healing. Insiders said she had been working on it for over a year. Tyler Perry was reportedly mentioned by name in several chapters. But this wasn't meant to destroy him. A person close to the project said, "This isn't a revenge book. It's a testimony. She's telling the truth to set herself free and maybe help others find that same freedom." In the past few years, China has become more vocal about her Christian faith. She's used her social media platforms to share Bible verses, talk about spiritual growth, and discuss the emotional cost of compromising your beliefs for fame. She's different from other celebrities because she's not trying to be palatable. She's not softening her message to be more marketable. She once wrote, "I'd rather be cancelled by the world than silenced by my own spirit. God gave me this voice, and I won't waste it anymore." That post went viral too. It touched people because it was raw, honest, and fearless. She started a YouTube series where she talks openly about truth, transparency, and the darker parts of the entertainment world. She's mentoring younger actors now, warning them about the traps she once fell into. She tells them to trust their instincts, to protect their values, To never be so desperate for a role that they lose themselves in the process. And through it all, despite the criticism and backlash, she says she has no regrets. She said, "If one girl feels less alone, if one person stands up for themselves because they saw me do it, then it was all worth it." As for Tyler Perry, he hasn't responded publicly. No denials. No explanations. No messages. But sometimes, silence can be louder than words. People are starting to wonder, why hasn't he said anything? Is he hoping the controversy will fade? Is he trying to protect himself? Or is he beginning to understand that the damage is already done? What started as one young woman sharing her story has grown into something much bigger. It's now a cultural moment. A reckoning. A reminder that the entertainment world, with all its lights and applause, still has shadows. Behind every smiling face, there might be pain. Behind every successful show, there might be people struggling in silence. Anne McClain stood up and broke that silence. She challenged the very system that helped create her. And in doing so, she forced everyone to ask, what are we really supporting? Are we lifting up creators who use their power responsibly? Or are we ignoring the human cost of that success? Now, more than ever, fans are watching. Networks are paying attention. Young actors are listening. And Anne McClain isn't backing down. Her voice is clear. Her mission is bigger than one show or one creator. She wants to create change. She wants the next generation of artists to feel safe, respected, and heard. She wants the truth to be told. And no matter how much resistance she faces, she's not turning back. This is no longer just a personal journey. It's a movement. So when people look back at this moment years from now, they might not just remember it as the time one actress spoke up. They might remember it as the moment the walls started to crack. The moment honesty became more powerful than silence. And the moment the world was finally forced to listen. Thanks for watching. Keep it and stay tuned for interesting episodes. Like and subscribe our channel. Have a good day.